You will not
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andy Lamb. I work in the Bate collection of musical instruments. Some of you may not have heard of that or may not realise it's a collection within the University of Oxford. We are not part of the Aspire team, I should say straight away. And I'm here as an honoured guest, thank you so much, to be given the opportunity to explain a little bit about the kind of work we do. We are an accredited musician, within the meaning of the Act as laid down by the Arts Council, and therefore do conform to all of the standards which are laid down in the accreditation scheme. But we are a collection that is prepared to take audacious risks. I'll explain a little bit about that. I should apologise, first of all, there won't be many flashy pictures up here because even though I did send my memory stick off earlier on in last week, it just seems to have vanished, which is probably no bad thing. The collection is quite modestly resourced and it's embedded in the Faculty of Music primarily as a resource for the students of the Faculty of Music and researchers and visiting researchers. And one of the things we do is we allow people to play the musical instruments. Those of you who are totalitarian conservators will be aware that this is completely off the agenda. I was trained as a conservator myself, so I'm aware of the risks I'm taking. But one of the issues, I think, is that over the years, we have developed possibly a one-dimensional approach to this in the wonderful world of musical instrument museums. And one of the issues of having a collection like this embedded within the music faculty is there should be an opportunity for students and visiting researchers to actually have hold of the instruments and play them. And so the first question, of course, is why should they want to do that? And I'm going to conduct a little experiment now, and I hope you'll bear with me. It's going to be a bit interactive. Does anybody here play a musical instrument? Oh, madam, Beth, what do you play? You play the piano. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want you, just for the moment, for the sake of argument, to imagine you have never heard a piano before. And Beth is now going to tell us what a piano sounds like.
It's very, just sounds like heaven, basically. The greatest music that you've ever heard in your whole life is probably composed on a piano. And that's all I can say about it.
Thank you very much. That is fantastic. That was horribly unfair, and I apologise abjectly. It's an exercise I take all of the visiting groups we have through, just to get over the point, really, that we do not collectively have a shared vocabulary for what music sounds like. And if you ever read any of the reviews or reports or any of the feedback reports I have on file, they always wax lyrical about rich, round sounds with all of these kind of nebulous qualitative indicators that you can't quite put your finger on. So, essentially, the only way that we, or a visiting researcher, can find out what a musical instrument sounds like is to play the musical instrument. Sounds quite simple, I suppose. And one of the facts of life is that with all of their infinite subtle variations, it's not necessarily the case that one recorder will sound or play exactly like another one. Of the various instruments we have in the collection, there's one particularly globally iconic recorder made by the great French maker Gaillard in about 1720. And of those late Baroque instruments of the period, it's one of the few that has survived to us intact without modification. Consequently, I have researchers from all over the world who wish to examine the instrument, photograph it, put it through CT scans, reverse engineer it so that somehow they can find a way of reproducing that instrument. And that, in a nutshell, I suppose, is very much what we're trying to achieve. But it does go beyond that, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. One year I asked, it was about this time of the year, student inductions were coming up, and I had an undergraduate group through, so I said, so why do you want to play these instruments? And one of the students says, because it's fun. And I thought, well, actually, that is as good a reason as any. It's probably not a researchy, academic-y reason, but it'll do. So using that as a basis, anybody who walks through the door of the museum should have an opportunity to play a musical instrument. And the question is, how do we manage that whilst securing the integrity of the collection? And the means that we've developed was based on an idea by Bob Barclay of the Canadian Conservation Institute, writing about 25 or 30 years ago, when he was challenged to actually approach this issue. And he came up with what essentially is a grid of value. And what we have to do is ascribe a scale of value to the objects that we have in the collection. So, for example, the Gaillard recorder, which is in original condition, is in robust condition, is playable, is gorgeous, is a global icon, that would have a very, very high value on that list. Whereas, as an alternative, perhaps the pink plastic recorder that I bought the other day would probably have quite a low value on that list. And we've got a number of issues at stake that we have to take into mind, or have to bear in mind. Is the instrument important? Is it associated with an individual or an event? Is it still in production? Can you get copies? If it was damaged, would it be the end of the world? Or would it just be regrettable? Now, they're all accessioned museum objects, and we don't want any of them to explode in a terminal kind of way. But we do have to take risks. We have to be prepared to embrace compromise if we're going to deal with this subject. And I'm happy to say, up to now, so far, we've had no major issues. That's not to say we never will, and I'm always horribly aware that the moment may come. So what is the point of all of this? Well, I think it's fair to say that one of the things we want to do is to share our collection with the broadest possible audience. An example of that was earlier on in the year we were celebrating an Adolphe Sax anniversary, and so we put on an Adolphe Sax anniversary concert in the Holywell Music Room using original instruments. And this was recorded, and we have uploaded a number of the tracks onto our website. So a broader possible audience can have access to this kind of unique event. Similarly, we've loaned instruments to, for example, the Foundling Museum for their George Frederick Handel exhibition, and part of that deal was musicians should be able to borrow the instruments and play them in public performance. Again, sharing with the wider possible audience. But it's not just that, because one of the things I've discovered in managing this particular scheme is that nobody else is doing it. And so what I've done is I've started being very systematic about how I bring all of this information together, the results of doing this, and I've started sharing best practice. And just recently, I'm proud to say, and this is definitely me boasting, the Cremonese Violin Museum has just opened up. Stradivarius violins, the Amatis, Delgrès, Guarneris, all of those people. And they have approached me for a systematic approach to allowing use of historical musical instruments. Of course, there's more to it than that. There's more to the Bate collection than that. But I think that indicates in a kind of nutshell the kinds of excellence we're trying to achieve. Thank you very much.